Chapter 10, Home to the Alm.
Two days later, Sebastian deposited Heidi's trunk and basket on the Mayenfeld station platform. The train was whistling further up the valley. Sebastian looked longingly after it, for he much preferred traveling in that safe and easy way to climbing a mountain on foot, a mountain which might be steep and dangerous besides. Not far from the railway station stood a little wagon, drawn by a lean horse. Into this wagon a broad-shouldered man was loading several large bags, which had been brought by the train. Sebastian stepped up to him and questioned him about the safest way to get to Dorfli.
"All ways are safe here,"
was the short reply.
"If your trunk is not too heavy, I can take it up to the village, and the child as well."
"I can go alone,
Heidi chimed in.
and I know the way from Dorfli up the Alm."
Sebastian knew that he ought to go with Heidi, but he agreed to let Heidi go alone. A heavy load was lifted from Sebastian's mind as he watched Heidi roll away on the cart's high seat. He hadn't had to climb a mountain after all. He sat down in the station to wait for the returning train. The carter was curious about the child.
"You must be the girl who used to live with the Alm uncle. Didn't they treat you well down in the city?"
"They were very kind."
Heidi replied.
"Then why didn't you stay?"
"Because I'd 1,000 times rather be up on the mountain with grandfather."
"Bah!
The man growled.
Perhaps you'll think differently when you get up there. But I wonder,"
he thought to himself.
"if she knows how it is."
When the cart reached Dorfli, Heidi grabbed her basket and started up the path.
"Thank you. Grandfather will come for the trunk,"
she called back. So the carter was left to pass on to the villagers the surprising news that Heidi had returned to the Alm uncle. Heidi ran as fast as she could up the mountain with one thought in her mind.
"Will the grandmother be sitting by her spinning wheel? Or has she died since I've been gone?"
Now she had reached the hollow where the grandmother's hut stood, and her heart began to throb. She could hardly open the door, she trembled so. She ran to the middle of the room and stood there, too out of breath to speak.
"Heavens!"
sounded from the corner.
"Our Heidi used to run in like that. Who has come in?"
Rushing into the corner and into the grandmother's lap, the girl was unable to say anything more from sheer delight.
"Dear child, you're back. Thank heavens. And I'll never leave again,"
Heidi promised.
"Here's a present for you.
She pressed one of the rolls into Granny's hands.
Now you won't have to eat that hard black bread."
Just then Bridget appeared in the doorway. "Heidi!" she gasped. "I can't believe my eyes. Oh, Mother, if you could see the beautiful dress she's wearing, and a hat with a feather. Why, I hardly recognize her."
"I must go home to my grandfather,"
said Heidi.
"but tomorrow I will come to you again. Good night, grandmother." "Yes, come again, Heidi,"
said the old woman, and she pressed Heidi's hand between her own and could hardly let go. "Why have you taken off your beautiful dress?" asked Bridget.
"Because grandfather might not know me if I went to him in it."
"He will know you, but you must be careful. Peter says the Alm uncle has become very cross." But Heidi was already running up the footpath. Several times she paused to catch her breath and to gaze at the mountain peaks blazing red in the setting sun. By the time she reached the hut, where grandfather sat smoking his pipe, she was panting so hard that all she could do was drop her basket and fall into her grandfather's arms.
"So you have come home again, Heidi. Did they send you away?"
"Oh no, grandfather,"
Heidi answered.
"They were all so good to me, but I could hardly bear being away from home. I often thought I would smother. It choked me so. Then one morning, Herr Sesemann called me very early and said I was going home. Perhaps it tells all about it in his letter.
And she took the letter and the package from her basket and laid it on the old man's knee. After he had read the letter, he handed her the package.
This belongs to you. It is enough money to buy a bed and clothes.
I don't need it, Grandfather,
said Heidi.
I have a bed, and Clara gave me so many clothes, I shall never need any more.
Take it and put it in the cupboard. You will use it someday.
Heidi obeyed and skipped into the hut, where she was delighted to see everything again. She climbed the ladder to the loft, but,
Grandfather,
she cried,
I no longer have a bed.
You will soon have another,
he replied.
I didn't know you would return. Now come and get your milk.
Heidi came down and took her seat on the high stool. She drank the goat's milk as eagerly as if she had never had anything so precious in her reach before. A shrill whistle sounded outside. Heidi shot out of the door like lightning. There was Peter and his flock of goats. So you're back, Peter cried. Will you come with me to the pasture tomorrow?
Not tomorrow,
said Heidi, as she kissed Little Swan and Little Bear.
I promised to visit your grandmother tomorrow, but soon.
Heidi led the two little goats off to their stalls, then returned to the hut to find the old man tucking her sheet around a new bed of fresh-smelling hay. Heidi lay down, gave a great yawn, and in no time at all she was asleep. During the night, her grandfather left his couch at least 10 times, climbing the ladder to see if Heidi was truly home with him again. The next day, the Alm uncle took Heidi to visit Peter's grandmother while he set off down the mountain to fetch Heidi's trunk.
Ah, child,
the old woman cried.
The roll was so tasty, so soft. I feel stronger already. But you must eat more than one, Grandmother.
Mother wants to make them last as long as possible, Bridget explained.
But they'll grow stale.
Then Heidi remembered the package she'd carried home from Frankfurt.
I have lots of money,
she said.
Peter shall take some to the village baker and buy you a fresh roll every day.
Oh, no, child, Bridget began.
Yes,
Heidi insisted.
Now then, Grandmother, shall I read to you?
Both women gasped.
Can you read, Heidi?
Heidi climbed on a chair and brought down the hymn book.
What would you like to hear? Anything you like, child,
said the old woman eagerly.
Here is something about the sun. I will read it for you. Today we languish in grief and anguish, but earthly sorrow shall fade tomorrow. After the storm the sun shines bright. Sweet peace and pleasure in boundless measure we know is given in the gardens of heaven, and thither my hopes yearn day and night. Oh, Heidi, that gives me light. It gives me light in my heart. Oh, how much good you have done me, Heidi.
The old woman exclaimed, her face jubilant with happiness. Questions. 1. How did Heidi travel to Dorfli after she got off the train at Mayenfeld? 2. Did Sebastian accompany Heidi all the way to her grandfather's hut? 3. Whom did Heidi visit on her way back to her grandfather's hut? 4. What was the present Heidi had for the grandmother? 5. What did Heidi do when she saw her grandfather smoking his pipe in the hut? 6. What did Heidi hand over to her grandfather after they hugged each other? 7. What was put in the package? 8. Did Heidi's grandfather take the money for his own? 9. Who showed up soon after Heidi had a cheerful meeting with her grandfather? 10. Was Peter's grandmother surprised to find that Heidi could read the hymn book to her?